Good morning. Thanks for joining us today. This is Elizabeth Leslie from the League of Women Voters of California, and we're just getting started with our morning office hours, our question and answers session with Rain. And I see we have three people on the line. Hi, Ed. We have Ed Burkhalter on the line. We have Ellen Forbes on the line and Martha Rothenberg on the line. And we may get a few others joining us along the way. So I just wanted to, again, to say welcome, and I'm going to turn over control to Rain Michaels, who is our guru that will be helping us today in figuring out how to work through our Milo questions. And with that, Rain, I'm turning it over to you, and I will also be answering questions in chat, and when we have questions, I will be unmuting people. So with that, Rain, you can take it away.
Great, thank you very much. And Elizabeth, just a request, if you're able to do this as we go along with topics, if you can just kind of jot down what time we moved to specific topics, then we can use that as a timestamp in the video when we send that out.
I will do that. Thanks for the reminder. And we're also, we are recording this, and that is why. So later, you'll be able to watch Rain answer your questions in the video with the accompanying audio. So again, Rain, go right ahead.
All right, let me find that. And I had a few things open because we were having some difficulty getting me connected, but here we are, and good morning, everyone. I'm looking forward to your questions. I can actually guess what some questions might be based on the people on the call. I'm guessing that there's going to be some web form questions, some questions about the sidebar, but before I start making more of those speculations, I'd like to ask each of the people on this call to, I'll call on you one at a time, and I'd like to ask you to just kind of give me a high-level overview of the things that you're hoping we can cover on the office hours themselves. I'm just going to call on each of you individually so that we don't end up getting any kind of feedback with multiple people talking or noises coming. So Ed, it looks like you are unmuted at the moment, so I'm going to go ahead and start with you.
I still have some questions about how you deal with emails on these business programs, how you put a newsletter in that thing so that you don't have PDFs.
Okay, newsletters, not PDFs. Okay, so obviously using something like MailChimp or Constant Contact is actually outside of Milo. So we'll see if we can go over that a little bit if we have time, depending on what questions are. And Elizabeth, it might be worth making a note that some kind of a webinar or training specifically on using a newsletter service like MailChimp or Constant Contact might actually be a very worthwhile thing to do, because I think a lot of people have questions about how to do that and are concerned about moving away from PDFs.
Thank you.
All right, is there anything else that you'd like to see covered?
Not right now.
Okay, all right, let's move on to Ellen. If you're able to connect, I see a little warning sign, so can you just let us know if you're there? There you are, great.
Yes, hi. I have a question from one of our members about who deals with PayPal, and it may, now that I've heard your answer to Ed, it may be the same reply that that's not inherent in Milo, but she wants to know how to do in one transaction, not requiring multiple transactions as it does now, how to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different things. I just sent an email about 10 of 10, I'm sorry to be so late, to LWVC with them listed. Okay.
Okay, so that's another interesting point. So these are external systems that
Right.
a lot of leagues are going to be using. I'm guessing Eventbrite might actually come up as one as well. So we've already heard, newsletters, which, there's MailChimp, there's Constant Contact, there's a few others. There's payment processing tools like PayPal and Google Checkout. When we get to your question, though, I will talk about the embed code elements of PayPal within the system.
Okay.
I'll also make sure to touch on tricks that you can use so that you can use the forms on your Milo site and then just reduce your PayPal transactions to just one button so that you don't
Good.
have to, so that it's a way, it's kind of a trickery, and it might, mean that you're being kind of creative, but I'll give you some ideas there, which I believe are going to actually address some questions from the next person that I'm going to call on, which is Martha. So Martha, what are you hoping is covered?
Hi. Well, yes, I want to hear the answers about PayPal because we're just opening our account now, and it looks like there's going to be a learning curve. So that should be very helpful. I have three other questions, one of which is real quick, which has to do with the use of PDFs. We don't like PDFs. Is Open Document a reasonable alternative?
Oh, okay. That's an interesting question. And that's a really interesting question. So we'll take some time on that. There's kind of a yes and no answer to that.
Of
You're
course.
addressing some aspects, but you're not addressing others. So that's a good one to talk about, and that's kind of a bigger picture conversation that also goes back up to Ed's topics. So we're definitely going to need to spend some time on kind of newsletters and assets, PDFs being one of those types of assets. So I'll just make a big kind of note, newsletters and assets, as being something that we definitely need to spend some time on this morning. Okay, anything else that you wanted to bring up now before we move on to the next person?
Yeah, I have two other questions, one of which I know I've submitted a question or a help request on, and I think it's kind of complicated. So this may not be the right forum for it, but we've got two things going on. One is that with our membership form, I'm trying to embed a PDF of a paper form or a printable form
Okay.
in the text box, in the WYSIWYG text box. And the link itself does goofy things. So it'll show up at the beginning of the paragraph as well as where I'm embedding it. So I'm not sure what that glitch is about. Again, it may not be appropriate to talk about that here. And the other
no, that's a good topic because that has
good.
generally to do with formatting and assets again. So, okay, and your next one?
The last one is just the donate button that shows up on the original template seems to be embedded in the sidebar somewhere. I can't find where it is.
Okay, that's a really good one to bring up as well. There's I saw your questions on that, and I definitely want to answer that because that's not as straightforward of an answer as I think you think, but there is a solution. So we will. There are a few solutions, so we'll go over that as well. Okay, great. I'm going to move on to Andrea then and see if you can give me kind of a high-level overview of what you're hoping to cover today.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, good. MailChimp, things like that, putting in a photo, those are my main concerns right now.
Okay, so media, which goes with assets. So great. There's definitely a theme today. This is wonderful.
Yeah.
Thanks. All right. And then let's see, Angela.
Hello.
Hello.
Angela Torrens from Placer County League of Women Voters.
Welcome. So what are your high-level questions today?
Well, unfortunately, we have nobody who's an expert in this, and so I am going to follow along with your talk and your Q&A, and then I might jump in to ask questions. I'm wondering if you could tell me whether there is somebody who could assist us in getting everything migrated in one fell swoop, or is this really a step-by-step process?
No, actually, there are solutions for you in getting help with the migration. That's an off of office hours topic that Elizabeth will be able to follow up with you on.
Thank you.
And there's a plan in place, so
great.
You are not going to be left in the dark unless you choose to be.
Thank you. No, absolutely not. I'm looking forward to that.
And next person then on the list, and I think the last one so far, please forgive me if I'm mispronouncing your name and correct me, Aisha?
All right, hi, yes, that's right. How are you?
Oh, great. Good, how are you? So what are some of your high-level questions that you're hoping to see answered today?
Well, I'm with the Palo Alto League of Women Voters with Ellen, who's also on the line.
Great.
And I don't know if Ellen already asked the question. Sorry, I just joined a few minutes late. So we're just we're going to be migrating shortly, and we want to make sure that we're ready to go in terms of having all our information ready for the migration.
Okay. Okay, so info ready. That's a good question as well, and we'll that's a little bit separate from the topics that have already been discussed, but I think it will be helpful to everyone to just kind of have a sense of strategy. So we'll try to kind of block out some time at the end just to specifically focus on that. Okay, so let's I think newsletter and assets are really the big topic in media. So let's go ahead and start with some of those kind of really big topics. These aren't the simple ones of just kind of how to create your pages. These are kind of more how to work with assets within your pages. So the first thing that I know is already clear to some of you, so I apologize, but I really want to make sure is clear to everyone, is that when you're dealing with websites and you have kind of two different things, two different components that make up your site. You have the site code, and then you have the site assets. And the assets would be any kind of media like images that display. So even looking at what you're seeing right here, we have the logo up at the top here. We have these words here that are an image, making democracy work. We have this donate button. We have these images here in this rotation. These are all assets, and any PDFs that we put into the site, those are assets, they're files. Now, it's weird to call them physical files because they're not, they're digital, they are code themselves, but the way that I'd like you to think about them is as physical entities that the code that makes up your site is linking to or referencing. So a physical object must exist, a physical digital object must exist in order for the site to reference it. So, and that's true for PDFs, it's true for any kind of document. When you're talking about code, code is anything like the text on the page or the link to the PDF. Let me, I'm not sure which of these pages has a link to a PDF, but not this one, this has embed code in it. But some of my pages in this demo local league, some of them do have links to PDFs, and I'll add one today so that you can really see this happening. But that PDF from the world of the internet is perceived as a physical object, separate from the code, which is all of the text. In an ideal world, as much as possible would be text, not physical assets. So, you know, there's been a lot of reference to PDFs. There are a lot of people who are feeling uncomfortable because of this heavy push to move away from PDFs. And I definitely understand that, especially because a lot of you have a large archive, a large library of really well thought out PDFs that are great assets that you have to date. But PDFs in general, and even images, they're not really responsive. They're not flexible. The internet has moved to kind of this environment where everything is chunked out into little bits and sent to all kinds of different devices, from a watch to a billboard. And anything that's an image or a PDF becomes problematic when you start doing that. Images, not quite as much, because they're just kind of graphics that are meant to enhance the experience. But definitely PDFs are very, very problematic when you start doing that. They're also not really good for search engines, and they're not really good for accessibility. So if you're trying to make your content available to somebody who needs to use a screen reader or some kind of a mobility enhancement device, a PDF is going to be problematic for them as well. So that being the case, I'm just kind of mentioning that as you're thinking about your content, because there is a question here about kind of prepping your content. Try to think about how you can move away from PDFs as much as possible. But when you're actually trying to use PDFs or link to PDFs or embed images into your content, which we're going to go into right here, we have a media library that we've set up on Milo. And that media library becomes kind of a searchable resource for material that's already been created. And you can go through that and make use of it to try to find things, but you can also use it for your league specifically. So I'm on this About page here. And let's say I want to do two things. One is I want to add a PDF to it, because there are occasionally times when PDFs are really a good way to get material out. You know, for example, if you've created a massive handbook that's 50 pages long, a PDF is probably going to be your best bet. So I want to add a PDF to this, and then I also want to add an image to the layout to make it look a little bit more interesting. So when I click on New Draft here, sorry, that's View Draft, I'm going to click on Edit Draft. So I have a draft already, but I'm going to click on Edit Draft so that I can go in and I can edit this. And when I'm in here, what I can do is I can place assets in multiple places. I'm going to scroll up a little bit here, just kind of remind you that you have different fields, and it's definitely worth exploring what those different fields do. And then down here, we have this attachments field set. And I have a number of attachments already on this particular item here, which is curious because they weren't, because this is the draft version. So I have a number of attachments that are already here. These are PDFs that I have attached. And this is in the draft version. I also have this button right here that says Add Media. And this button is going to place the media in line in my body area wherever I want it to. So what I'll do is I'll put my cursor wherever I want the cursor to be, wherever I want the object to be. I'll place the cursor, and then I use this Add Media button to open up the library and locate that physical file in the library itself. So let's just start out by simply doing that. We're going to add an image right here. So I'll place my cursor. I'll click on this icon. Now I have a few tabs here that you see. Let me describe these tabs. This first tab allows you to upload new files as you go. You can drag and drop the file right into this field right here, and then it'll actually place it, and then you move on to the next. Or you can click Upload, and that'll allow you to search through your own personal file system on your computer to locate that file. The other option that you have here is Web, and what that means is if there's a file somewhere, LWV Palo Alto, you have, so let's say you want to take one of your images from your current site and move it to your new site. You would need the URL for that image, and then you can place it here. And what it's going to do is it's going to transfer, it's going to physically transfer that file from the server that's hosting your old site. Sorry, it won't transfer it because that sounds like it's, transfer is the wrong word to use because that sounds like it'll take it away from the old server. It's not going to take it away from the old server. What it's going to do is copy that file from one server to the other. So now I'll say next, and it's literally, the site is going out, it's grabbing that file and creating a copy of it on the Milo server, so that when your old site goes away, this image is now moved to your new site, and that will still be usable. While I'm here, the other thing that I want to show you is there's this little crosshair in the middle of the image. I hope you can see that. I'm guessing it's pretty small for you, but this little crosshair indicates what the site considers the center of that image. Right now, there's not a lot of cropping going on images, but over time, as new features are added, we might be adding something where images are cropped to be a uniform size in a specific view. And if the image is cropped, the site takes it crops from what it considers the middle of the image. So in this case, if this were going to be a very long horizontal image, say to use in a header area, it might crop off the head of the subject of the picture. So that would be a problem. What you can do is you can tell the site to consider a different portion of the image as the center by just moving that crosshair to whatever you think is a good point that you want to make sure, no matter how the image gets cropped, that that content always remains in the image itself. So this is a really great example because we want this face to remain part of this image no matter what happens to it. The next thing that we really need to do for accessibility purposes, as well as search engine purposes and the benefit of the media library, is we need to have some good alt text and information about this image. So I'm just going to copy the information that came from the site itself for the file description, because that gives me some good information. And then the alt text would basically be, you know, something about what that image is about. This is probably, that's probably as much as we need there. That's duplicating a lot of what's in the file description, but it's helpful information for the user. We'll call this current members and events. So now we're classifying the image, and I'll explain to you why as we move further along. So we're giving an idea of what this image is about for future reference. So now I'll go ahead and save this. And then now I've created the image in the library. Now the interface that I'm faced with is what I'm going to use to place the image into the content. And I'm going to leave everything as it is. You're typically going to want to do that. Sometimes you might want to change the alt text or something, but right now I'm just going to leave it as it is. And now it plops it into the page. I can click on it and resize it if I want to. I can also float it to the left or right by selecting it and then choosing float image right or left. I'll float it to the right. That looks a lot better. And that places the image right there into the content. Now I'm going to do the same thing with a PDF. A PDF will not display in the page itself, but a link to the PDF can display. And this is actually right here. This is a link to a PDF that I already added, but I'll go ahead and add another one. Do the same thing. So I'm going to place my cursor where I want that PDF to be, use my file browser, and now I'm going to go on to the next thing that I told you about. When you're classifying your content, there's a good reason why you're doing that. Because in addition to bringing these first two tabs, bringing that media into the library, you can also access media and search for media that's already been created on the system. So there's three tabs here that you'll see. My Leagues files. These will be any files that have been uploaded by somebody in your league. So if you're talking about Palo Alto and you have 3 people putting content in, then any of those 3 people adding content, any media that they uploaded will be found in this tab. My files will be any media that you as an individual uploaded. And then all files will be all of the files on the Milo system. So you can use this to, say, for example, if you're looking for a Twitter icon, you can use this to find that really quickly. Or if you're looking for Easy Voter Guide, I guess it might be 2 words, so you'll want to kind of do different searches. But you can use this to find content. If I'm looking for specifically for an image, so I'm going to go to File Type and I'm going to look for images that are Easy Voter and see what I get. So now there's some images that are Easy Voter Guide images. So the tagging that happens, whether it's, you know, the type of media, if you want to look for current members, images of current members, if you want to look for images that have to do with climate change, all of this is based on the information that's put in there when you upload the file in the first place. From here now, though, you can go ahead and start selecting files that you want to add. And in this case, I actually want a PDF. So let me see if I can find a PDF that I have uploaded, and it doesn't look like there is one. So I'm going to remove image from here because I want a PDF, not an image. And a lot of these are PDFs. So I'll just find this PDF right here. I'll click on it, submit it. And now I have a link to that PDF in the body, in the blob of content in the middle of my content. The words that are used to indicate the PDF aren't that great. So that's what I did up here. I changed the text. Here is some text for this PDF. It's always nice to tell somebody that it is a PDF. So I just typed right in the middle, and then I'm going to delete the part that I don't want. And now I have that link to that PDF. You can do the same thing down here at the bottom. You can add PDFs into this attachments area, which I've already done. I've uploaded 3 PDFs. You can actually, in this area, in the middle of your content, you can only place one item at a time. But in here, you can actually grab multiple items if you want and place them all at once. I just held down the Shift key while I selected each and every one of those. There are 2 things that you're seeing here. You're seeing the file and the file name, and then you're seeing the text that you want the user to see. If you do not include text, then it'll see the file name. Then the user will see the file name. There's also this column here that says display, which allows you to temporarily hide a PDF from the list if you don't want it to display, and you can reorder them here. And I'll show you how these show up in just a moment. So I'll go ahead and save this. I'm still in draft mode, which is fine. We're going to look at the draft here. And now you can see the image that I put in. It's right there. You can see the link to the PDF that I put in. It's right there. If I click on it, it takes me to the PDF. And then if I scroll down here, you can see all of the PDFs listed at the bottom. All of the ones that were set to display. So that's kind of just roughly putting PDFs into your page, or putting images into your page. Now, some content types, for example, articles, have a special field that's called an image field in it, and I'll show you that in a moment. But if you add an image using that field, then anytime that content, whether it's an article or an event or something like that, is listed, that image will show up here in that list. So it's automatically formatting it and making it look a little bit nicer. And let me show you that. Let's add an article, because that's a content type that has image as one of the key fields in there as well. And you're going to use the same media library for this as well. There's another place where you can access your media library. That's this link right here in your Administer League menu, which says Manage Files. It starts out with your files. These are just the files that have been uploaded by you. It gives you some search options, an Add New File button, and a link to change this over to view all the files on the system. And there are a lot of files on the system. So you'll definitely want to use the search tools to find the file that the kind of the file that you're looking for. So I'm seeing a question. And the question is, so from Martha, Martha's talked about getting a duplicate link at the beginning and end of the text. So we also want to take a look at that. Now, Martha, correct me if I'm wrong, you mentioned that you had that when you were working in the web form. Is that correct?
It's not I'm trying to add it to the text box at the beginning of the web form, not the form itself.
Not the form itself, but in the text box and at the beginning of the form. Okay, great.
So I can see a workaround by just using an attachment, but I'm not sure.
Right. Okay, so before I move on to that, are there any questions about anything that you've seen so far regarding using files and using PDFs on your site? Okay, so if questions come up, obviously we'll see them, but let's go ahead and specifically address Martha's question, because that's probably going to help a lot of people, or it'll identify a bug that I need to fix, which is one of the things that happens as well. So just so that you know what's happening right now, I've switched back to being a full-on administrator. The UI looks a little bit different, and I'm going to masquerade as Martha. So Martha, at the moment, I am pretending to be you. Okay. So the first thing that I need to do is find out which document you're referring to. So let's go ahead and go down to Manage Content. And what is the piece that you're having issues with?
Okay, so
Is it the join
it's the first one listed, the join
Okay, great.
form. And let's just see. So you can see the link there right at the beginning.
Right.
I placed it further down and got the duplicate link further down, just a couple of paragraphs down. And got the duplicate link. I deleted the original link, tried to delete the duplicate link, can't get it to go away.
Okay. So
I think it's a bug.
yeah, actually it's not.
Okay, good.
I believe what you're encountering is just that sometimes there's a lot that this happens with Word as well. I'm sure you've encountered times when you're like trying to format something and you get so deep in formatting and then you start making changes that it impacts other places. It's because there's this is what's called a WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. WYSIWYGs are never actually what you see is what you get. What a WYSIWYG is doing is giving you little buttons and a visual kind of best guess at what things will actually render like. And on the other side of the WYSIWYG is a whole bunch of code that's being written based on the buttons that you're pushing. So when we look at this right now, we see something nicely formatted that you're comfortable reading and doesn't require you to know markup. If I disable the rich text, now we're seeing markup.
Mm-hmm.
Now the issue is that sometimes when you're deleting things, you're not getting all of the markup.
Mm.
And if you don't get all of the markup, now you're going to kind of continue to have a ghost of something previously. So it's the membership form that you want to link. So I'm going to delete this, and you'll see down here it still says media elements. So if I go in back in here, I'm still seeing this, all of this right here. This is all a ghost of that content. So it's still there even though you deleted it. So it's not really a bug, it's just what the issue is, that because that link was put right at the beginning of your document, in the WYSIWYG, you're not really able to take your cursor far enough back to get at all that code and properly delete it.
Okay,
so when
I get that part, but I did not insert the link there. I inserted the link farther down.
Okay, so I'm curious about that. That could have been an accident, or it could have been a drag at some point. We'll definitely work on inserting the link right now, but I'm glad you're bringing this up because this is helpful for everybody to see, because we're getting into kind of troubleshooting. Every once in a while you're going to encounter weird issues like this because it just is. It's a lot of code going on. So when you encounter something like this, you wouldn't encounter this problem in the middle of your content, because you would be able to take the cursor back far enough. You know, even if you had to, you could delete the exclamation point and the T and recreate those, and now you're absolutely sure that you got whatever code was in the middle out because you deleted the things on the edges. But you're just not able to get far enough back up here to be sure. And notice when I put my cursor here, I see this thing here that says media element. It's like, okay, well, obviously something's there that I don't want there. So when that happens, what I would do is, if I were you and didn't know code or didn't want to know code or whatever, I would disable the rich text, and then I would just delete everything I didn't recognize, you know, all the way to the want. The site will recreate the things that it needs, and then I would just type in want. And okay, some weird things happened, that's okay, I can just go fix that. But now I know that's gone. It's absolutely gone. So now the question is recreating it and making sure that it doesn't pop up there. My guess is that at some point you did accidentally have the cursor up here when you meant to have it somewhere else for the placement of that, because the document, the image, whatever it is, it will place wherever you put that cursor. Where do you want it? We might as well place it there.
Right at the end of the paragraph where you are now.
Oh, at the end of join?
No, to pay by check.
Okay, to pay by check. Okay, right there. So if we want to place it right here, then we'll put our cursor right where we want it. And then I'll go to my files since you uploaded it. And is it this one, 2017-09? Okay, great. So I'll select that. I'm happy with everything else. And then now, I don't love the text, so, download the 2017 membership form PDF. That's something I think a little bit nicer for the user to see. So I'll do that. And then you have a lot of other formatting options here. If I were you, I might go crazy and put it in a little list so that it looks cool. But I'm not going to do that to you. I'll let you make those choices. And then we'll go ahead and put a comment in here. Rain as Martha, fixing PDF. And, well, leave it as draft because you should choose when you want to actually publish it. And that should have fixed the issue. And there it is right there.
Yeah.
So my guess is that at some point, and this is easy to do, you accidentally had the cursor up here when you were doing when you were clicking. So the really important thing when you're placing a file, whether it's an image, which you can more easily drag, or a PDF, is just make sure that you have the cursor where you want it. And if you don't, and you place it in the wrong spot, rather than physically moving it in the WYSIWYG, because then what you're doing is you're kind of messing with the code that's on the back end, remove the element and then put your cursor where you want it and place it again, because you won't have to upload it again. It's already in your media library. So at that point, all you have to do is find it in your library and then place it. Questions?
That was helpful. Seeing the HTML code was also helpful, and to see how that remains. So yeah. Fingers crossed.
All right. Okay, so we should probably move on here to make sure that we're getting as much as we can, but a lot of what people were asking about was assets and media. So the next thing that really had a lot of has a lot of interest is dealing with PayPal and dealing with forms. So the first one I want to talk about is actually the one that Martha brought up regarding this donate button right here, because this is related. So this donate button that's automatically on your site is not part of your sidebar, your controllable sidebar. It is designed, and this was a decision that was made early on in the creation of League Easy Web. It is designed to be on your site. It is there. It is auto-created, and it, by default, no matter what, will link. Well, it's not just by default. It is set to link to the donate page, the page on your site that has the URL /donate, which doesn't mean that you're stuck with just that page that was created. You can replace it with a form, but you have to do it in a very specific way. And if you don't do it in that specific way, then you're going to need to ask Milo to just the Milo team to fix your issue, which is, it's a quick fix on our part, but it's not something that you can do because it does have security implications. So if I mouse over this, if you look down in the bottom left corner, it's very, very tiny, but you'll see it says Delaware, Sussex County, donate. That's the URL that this button will link to no matter what. That's the path that the button will link to no matter what. So a lot of the leagues that I migrated, they did have forms for their donate page. So what I actually did was I deleted the donate page that was created. I literally went to manage content. And for those of you who've already built your form, you probably don't want to do this. You don't want to start from scratch, so that's okay. So I went to manage content. I found the donate page in the list, and as I found this page that was auto-created, and you can go into edit, and then you can choose delete from there. Down at the bottom, delete is one of your options. Once this page is deleted, now a new page called donate, whether it's a form or an article, it doesn't matter what type of content it is, as long as the title at the point at which it's created is donate. You could edit it later and change the title if you wanted, but at the moment that it's created, that title needs to be donate. And then when you do that, it will turn that page into the page that's at that URL. So basically your steps are you delete the existing donate page, and then you go to the add form link, and you create a form called donate. And then that form will replace whatever was originally linked to from that donate button. If you've already created your donate form, let's say, for example, that you wanted to use your join form as your donate form. Your best course of action is to clone it, call it donate after you've deleted the donate page, save that, and then go back to the one that you cloned and delete that one, the original one, so that you don't have two of the same thing. And now that by cloning it, you didn't have to recreate everything. And now you have your form at the donate destination. Now, if that won't work for you for any reason, let's say your donate form, you just decided you actually wanted to keep it entirely on PayPal or somewhere else, and you didn't want to put it on your system, and you want that donate link to go somewhere completely different, all you need to do is send a message to the Milo support team with the destination URL that you want, and we can create a force redirect that sends the user from whatever from your donate URL over to wherever your destination needs to be. Any questions about that? No. Okay. So the next, that was kind of a PayPal related question, or a donate related question. So the next question that comes up is how to work with PayPal. So this particular webinar isn't about creating those PayPal embed forms. That would be a webinar specifically about working with PayPal. And I know Elizabeth is definitely taking notes on the idea of a webinar specifically for working with PayPal or specifically for working with MailChimp. But in terms of using that embed code here in your site, any embed code, let me switch back here, and I'm gonna, let's see, I've been so many users, I don't remember who's the owner of South Dakota here. Just gonna get a quick, okay, Amy. So I'm gonna masquerade now as Amy from South Dakota, who's not on this call, but the South Dakota League does have, I believe, a PayPal link in here that I put into, I put it right into the form. Okay, so here's an example of I deleted the donate page, and then I created a form called donate, and then I embedded the donate button as text within the form. And when you submit this form, which I won't, but the page that it goes to, the confirmation page, has that donate form embedded again. So how that embed code works, how it's working on South Dakota is actually different from how you're going to do it, because it's because South Dakota was created before a tool that I did to make things easier for you for embedding. But I'm only coming here because I want to grab that embed code. So from the embed code, or sorry, from the system that you're taking stuff from, so PayPal, Eventbrite, anything, Twitter, Instagram, anything that gives you something, a widget or something that you want to embed, the first step is to grab that code. and you'll use the tool itself to create the code that you want. Once you have the code, so I've copied that, now I'm going to switch back and masquerade as Rainbow Brite because I don't in any way want to mess with South Dakota. And don't worry, there are only 3 people who have the ability to masquerade as somebody else. That's me, Elizabeth, and Amaris. Nobody else could potentially masquerade as you. So I just want to, if you're watching me switch back from user to user, just know that we are the only people in the world who have the ability to do that. Okay, so now that I'm back in as myself and I can go in and play with Demo Local, I shouldn't have named it that because it's so hard to say. Let's say I wanted to put that PayPal link, I'll put it on this donate page here, whether this were a form or a donate page, it doesn't really matter. It's still going to be the same process. And actually, I'm not going to do it here. I'm going to do it on a form because I want you to see how you can kind of add extra stuff into your form. So we'll create the form page, a form. We'll give it a little tiny bit of text here. Oh, I should not have done that. I uncopied that PayPal code that I grabbed. So, well, that's okay. You'll get the point. It doesn't matter if it's that PayPal code or something else. So let me grab some embed code. I'm just going to go to Instagram because it doesn't matter what it's from. The same is going to be true for embed code regardless. And if I click on this and grab embed, copy embed code. Okay, so now I have some embed code. So I can put this into the body of my form page. I have this button right down here that says add third-party embed code. Now since I'm on a form, on most pages you're only going to have these buttons once, and you'll see this label body with embed code. But on a form, you're actually going to have it twice, because you can place content above or below the form itself. So let's say I wanted this embed code. We're going to pretend like it's PayPal, not Instagram, but it doesn't really matter. I want it below the form, not above the form. So I'll click on Add Embed Code. I'll paste that code. That's not my code here. Embed, copy embed code. Let's just make sure I'm getting it. And now I'll paste that code here. Now I have code. And we're going to leave this in draft state because we aren't actually going to use it. I'm going to save it. So now I have a page that is a form, although you don't see the form itself yet. It has a paragraph, and then we're pretending like this is PayPal, even though it's not. Now, if I want to add some form elements to it, I go to the Web Form tab here, and then I can add elements in here. So I'm just going to make this a text area for a message. I'll add it, and we'll save this. There's a whole video on this, so I'm not going to really go into this, but I just want to show you how that code shows up underneath the form itself. If I want something in between components, I can do that as well. So embed code, there's this markup option that you have right here. And if I click add, now in this case, I don't have those buttons to embed third-party code. So what I need to do is switch my text format to full HTML. Now I can paste that code in there. I am not going to switch it back. Do not use WYSIWYG with this. It must be full HTML. And then I'll save that component. And now I'll add one more field just so that you can see this. We'll use the token. And again, there's a whole video on this, so I'm not really going into this. But I want you to show you how that code's going in the middle of the fields in the form. And then, of course, it's repeated at the bottom because I have embedded it there as well. Any questions about that? Okay, so what I would recommend, if you know, depending on how sophisticated you want to get with PayPal, there is a hand raised, so let's stop and see what the question is from Ellen, I believe.
This is Martha, and my question is, if you embed the PayPal link as you've done and as they had on the South Dakota page, does it get submitted to PayPal when you click the submit button of the form?
No, no,
Okay.
It doesn't.
So that's a separate activity.
Right. So in what your best bet is to actually have people fill out the form, right? Don't put the PayPal thing on the form itself. Put the PayPal thing in your under form settings in your confirmation message here.
Okay.
And again, you would need it to be full HTML, or the way that the confirmation message works, you can either put the message into the page that's automatically used, or you could actually create your own page if you wanted. Or the other thing that you can do, because when the user submits the form, you can redirect them, you could actually set that custom URL to be the PayPal page itself, be the PayPal form. There's a lot of options.
So the order in which that things will happen then is the form with the membership information will be submitted to whomever is supposed to get that. Then the user will go to the confirmation page and be able to pay for their membership.
Exactly.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep. So to the question there was one person who's looking at potentially having to do multiple transactions in one with PayPal. That's dealing with PayPal on that front is its own, definitely its own webinar. But the other option that you have is that you could do all of that work in your form. And again, there's a video specifically on forms, so you can get really fancy actually with your forms if you want to. The video doesn't really talk about how to get super fancy, but there's a lot that you can do. We could do a whole webinar just on forms. So you could have all of that information in there and then simply use PayPal for the transfer of money itself. That is, unless you need the money to literally go to different accounts, you could potentially do all of the kind of transaction information. What is it that the user is actually doing? Are they Ed Fund? Are they General Fund? Are they supporting a specific campaign? Are they paying their dues? Whatever it is that they might be doing, you could have all of that dealt with in terms of indicating that in the form itself that's on your site, and then just get one PayPal payment embed code from PayPal for that final just transfer the money piece. You do want to make sure that you're at least encouraging them to give you the same email address so that so that you can associate the payment with the person, that there's some kind of identifying information between one and the other. But beyond that, that is one way that you can do that. All of your form results are stored here on the site itself. There's we're not seeing any because there aren't any submissions on this yet, but there's a list of all the submissions. There's a table where you can look at the submissions. You can flip through the submissions one by one, and you can download them into a CSV, which you could then open in Google Sheets or Excel. So there are a lot of things that you can do in that way as well. And I see a hand raised and a question. So let's, yes, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Hi, it's Aisha. Yeah, no, that was really helpful about the forms, because that's something that we're struggling with currently with, trying to do more customized code in PayPal to do exactly what it looks like Milo can do with the forms, and being able to customize whether it goes to a particular fund or how we want the monies to be collected. So is that completely possible to do then within the Milo form, and then just after each selection we just put the PayPal link down, which would, I guess, retrieve the funds then and put it directly into our PayPal account?
Right, so you would just put all the funds into the same account, correct? And then you guys figure out on your side how to allocate the money. Yeah, that's
Okay.
then you would basically just have, you would use the form. You could use the form on Milo, and because you can put it into a spreadsheet, that also
Mm-hmm.
gives you the ability to, however you want to use your spreadsheet, to
Right.
figure out where the money goes and what the budget is based on the submissions that have been made.
Right. No, that's really helpful to have the ability to do that allocation within the form on the website
Mhm.
itself instead of having to do it on the back end in PayPal.
Yeah,
Um,
and that would be a
mhm.
select list. So definitely watch the form video. And if
Okay.
you have
Okay.
questions after watching the form video, then there's a lot of people who've already been working with forms. So the Milo Google group
Okay.
is a great place to go. And then of course I jump in there sometimes as well, and and Elizabeth is in there often. So
Right.
um, and we
Yeah.
keep
No, that's a
creating new
great feature.
documentation based on the questions we get. So
Okay. Yeah. No, that's a very helpful feature. Thank you. Yeah.
great. Great. Yeah, that's probably something a lot of people are going to wonder about. So hopefully this portion of this office hours gets some attention. So we didn't look at MailChimp and setting up newsletters in MailChimp, and we only have 2 minutes left. That probably should be its own webinar. I'll talk with Elizabeth and see if she has some other ideas as to how we can get that information out. The other thing that we didn't really talk about was prepping your information to move into Milo. Um, so really the best thing I think for you to do, I'm just going to say this kind of really quickly, the best thing for you to do before you start moving, if you have the time, is kind of glance through a lot of the documentation and take a look at some of the sites that have already been created, especially this semi-disastrous one that I've been using for presentations, to kind of get a sense of what's possible. That way, you have sites already that have content, but it's not going to be a one-to-one match, because we're trying to kind of move the content and the way that it's set up into a more future-proofed mode of existing, which is more you're thinking this is literally technical. You're thinking about your content in terms of chunks, not blobs. And I am literally using technical engineering terms when I say chunks and blobs. I'm not making a joke. So you want to think about how to chunk out your content as much as possible moving forward. And that's why when you come here, there's all these different, oh, I'm logged out now, but there's all these different types of content that you can create. And when you're on each of these, so if you're on an event, it's very broken up. There's very different fields for each thing that you're going to add. And then when you display the content, it displays with all of those things broken out very specifically, because all of that is chunked out as much as possible, which makes it transferable from one environment to another. So in terms of preparing yourself at a very high level, that's the #1 way that I want you to think, is how can I break these things up as much as possible? Now, one of the big shifts that I'm seeing is challenging for people who are migrating, or at least for me, for the sites that I've been responsible for migrating, is that in the past, your positions have always kind of just been one page. So you're like, oh, here's our positions, and here's some links to other positions. But as it is now, position is a separate content type. And there is a page that on this demo local league doesn't have any, because we haven't added any positions yet. But there is a page that then shows your positions listed out based on each position that you add. And then that content is now transferable to other places or shareable between other leagues if you want to share it, because it's in those little chunks, as opposed to the blob. Now, when I refer to blob, this is the blob, the body area. You want to kind of resist putting everything into the body area as much as possible. And you want to try to be in little chunks as much as possible. Even using, I've seen, Dallas has been doing a great job using this body with embed code thing. So Dallas is actually breaking their sections out using additional formatted text, and kind of each time they would use a header, they use an additional formatted text. So each time there's a header in here, they use one of those, which is a great idea. So that's something to think about doing as well. You don't have to. And obviously you can see here on this one, it doesn't do that. But the more you do that, the better you are in terms of long-term viability of your content. I probably have to stop. I'm sure there are more questions. Elizabeth, did you want to say anything?
I just put something in the chat. Ed, if you have some more questions, I'm happy to take it offline and help you. But I do see there is one more question. I think we could probably handle one more from Angela Torrens. So after that, we will send you a link to this webinar so that you can watch it again. And if you have additional questions, there'll also be links in that email to support or emailing your questions and viewing the documentation and videos that we've put together for you to help you. So with that, let's see what question Angela has. Angela, what can we answer for you?
Well, I think you just answered the question, and thank you very much. Yeah, we will be linking up with you. We need to get into, we're already in your Google group, so we need to get into a stage where we're doing the total migration. A number of our members are not real confident about it. I'm not a whiz at it, but I certainly want to be, I want to be there to help get everything migrated over, and then to begin the editing by looking at your particular videos and doing it in small measures instead of big chunks. So I will be contacting you, Elizabeth, unless there's an email address you want me to use.
Sure, you can always use our Milo at lwvc.org.
Okay.
And I will put that in chat and in our follow-up email, but you're always welcome to use that.
Thank you. Thank you. That's my question.
Wonderful. Any final questions? I think that's it for today, Rain. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here and for using Milo. Again, if you have individual questions, don't hesitate to ask us. Check the documentation, and between those things, we'll get your questions answered and your problem solved. So, Rain, do you have anything else to add today?
Not at the moment. I look forward to seeing the sites come online, though.
Wonderful. Well, great. And we'll be bragging about sites as they go live. So watch your Facebook feed to see new sites that will be featured in the coming weeks. And thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful Friday.
Thank you.
Thank you.